Wow.
Wow, this is some really deep stuff.
I don't know what just happened, but something happened inside of me. Something snapped, something.
I wasn't expecting that
either. Sorry.
It's okay. It's all right. It's beautiful.
Monster is like really small, but it had to become that to stop me.
And then the hurt child became present when you mentioned it.
And I didn't realize this until now.
There were things that I didn't remember until now.
Funny, I haven't seen that before.
It feels like I'm the monster. I'm kind of seeing images of things. Of a world where they can exist. This clarity brings all kinds of answers.
It's clear. She hugged me and then went back to her place, I guess, in my heart. Oh, it wants to come out. It wants to bippity boppity boop Cinderella me. She's melted into my chest. It's ooey gooey.
All week been finishing things, cleaning up more, started eating vegetables again last week. And it kind of just started happening. It's almost like I just finished going through a meditation session.
I feel light. When you hit that first joint, in the morning, and
I actually feel a lot more awake.
Hello.
James.
Hey, welcome back.
How you doing, man?
I'm wonderful. How are you?
All right. Been on a journey since we spoke last, but that's nothing new.
Yeah.
How about you?
I've been doing exactly what I was doing before and loving it.
Good.
Yeah, coming up on 200 calls published.
Damn. Wow. Congratulations.
It's fun.
Yeah. How have you been doing? I don't know, last time we spoke, I was talking about the life force, that self energy, being what was exiled, and everything else just being basically a response to having feelings, and
right.
Those feelings being perceived through the lenses of experience. And how has that been going for you? Because I've had an experience.
Okay. Well, the question is kind of broad, so I'm not sure how I can answer it for me, but I would love to hear how it's going for you.
Well, no, I understand that was broad. It feels broad, but it's really more like just being connected with that energy, and rather
being
than
okay with it.
Yeah, being okay with it, and rather than kind of having conversations with parts and making sure everybody's okay and taking care of them, the issue kind of seemed for me as if it was just the fact that I was spending my time not feeling those feelings, not being okay with feeling them, and then having several side conversations with parts of myself about not being okay with feeling them, and then telling them that my micromanaging is going to help.
Right.
And I'm going to be able to, be there for them, but then still not being really aware of what that means to just simply be in the feelings.
Yeah. So is that where you feel like you are now? Is still, you say you're not aware of what it means to be in the feelings?
No, I do. I think that was the culmination of my previous calls.
Yeah.
That's where I had gotten to the last time we spoke, was kind of realizing that it's all just a response to basically the energy of being alive.
Right.
And how like the brain, has centers, and one of those centers is, I guess, between the solar plexus and the belly button, and that place feels a lot of, some people call it vibrations, like radiation, or it's just it's a feeling. It's an energy, and that energy is, I think, just the energy of being alive.
Yeah. And you could have that energy of being alive and someone else might not, and they're equally being alive, meaning that we're different biologically. And, I think that's also important to recognize is we're not all going to the exact same place when we're going to self energy. We're not all, cookie cutter. This is the place where we're all going to arrive when we're enlightened by self energy. It's like,
right. I do hear often, like, what does your gut tell you? What?
Right.
And that is kind of where I have all the feelings collect. Sure, there are times when like, it gets extreme, and then I'm like losing strength in my fingertips, and I feel a buzzing, and feel a weakness, in my legs or whatever. But that it all stems from for me, like the very first feeling is always right there in my gut. And that energy is always there. And that's what I was trying to say before, was that like the circumstances dictate how I am reacting to the energy that I am feeling in my gut.
Yes.
So like, say the circumstances aren't great, well then that feeling is anxiety, right? Or guilt or shame or whatever it is. But even when I'm in a great place and there is nothing going wrong at the moment, that energy is still there, and it's perceived to be like exuberant, ecstatic, happy, lightweight, jumping and dancing, like just like purely happy energy. And it's the same exact feeling. And it all has to do with my interpretation of the circumstances.
Yeah. So I wonder if that's parts interpretation, a part that's maybe more cynical or whatever. It's not in a good place, and it's saying this is what shame feels like.
Yeah, for sure. This would be this is a response to what I've done, or how I've put myself in this circumstance, or what this other person thinks about me. Yeah.
So the parts are making the meaning,
right?
They're making the meaning of what the feeling is.
But then from that moment, so that had happened maybe in the 2 weeks prior to our last conversation, and then I kind of had that as an epiphany kind of thing, and then it kind of just fell apart. Like it really just fell apart, as in like every time I seem to make a big leap forward, there are several steps that go in the opposite direction shortly thereafter, like some kind of revolt, like a coup.
Okay.
And so I was in this mind space where I feel integrated with my parts, as if my parts aren't so concrete anymore now that I understand that. Well, I felt like I understood that it was really all just one large system, and just various reactions to circumstances. And the one thing that's at the bottom of all of it is this self energy. And the whole idea was just to maintain contact with the self energy, maintain close proximity and integration with that self energy.
Okay.
But then things would happen, and then the dilemma in the brain, I guess, becomes, how much do I want to buy into it right now?
Yes.
And so I went on like a little spiral, a minor spiral, for a couple weeks, just like in various actions and not always related. Just how much because like the power's there, and do I want to access it? The power's there. Do I want to put the energy into accessing it? Do I want to stop the forward momentum of, old neurological pathways?
Mm-hmm.
How much energy do I want to put into that?
Right.
And that, like, I'm sure that these responses, these parts, were behind the rebellion.
Mm-hmm.
But I still saw them the same way, as if these aren't necessarily separate. I think that these parts are fragmentation, and integration is collecting those fragmented parts and putting them together as a whole. And the whole is staying in touch and being, acting from self energy and being in self energy. So really it's all just one thing, self energy, and my ability to connect with it.
Okay.
And so
I think I see it slightly differently in what it means to kind of integrate parts. I think parts can still be, let's say, kind of off doing their own thing. They can be, I think of like a hub and spoke kind of model where parts are out doing stuff and they're sending messages. And the question is more, is self picking up those messages and responding and leading? I don't know if that's any different than what you were describing, but
it seems very similar. And the fact that it's like all of those responses, which are these patterns of the parts, are all just like indicators of where the attention needs to be put, and it's on the self energy. Like it's like I'm rearing up against this feeling, and then looking for a way to control that feeling, whether it's through a manager, a firefighter, an exile, whatever it is. There's something there that is telling me, oh, you don't want to feel that feeling, when really that's exactly what I want to do. Because anytime I try to cover it up, it comes out sideways. Anytime I try to fill it up, it becomes even more empty. The fact is that void, which is where self energy is, like, it feels like that's the same thing. And I'm in depression now. That's that same energy in the same exact spot. And so that void is what is missing in my relationship with myself. Self energy, like between that connection between my cognitive self and my self energy. It's like dissonance or dissociation is happening between what is truly self energy, balanced and gracious and compassionate and kind and giving and loving and all of those things, and then where my brain is at that moment.
Okay. Yeah, you're introducing some concepts that are a little unfamiliar, or just pictures, perceptions that I'm a little unfamiliar with, just haven't quite encountered the way that you're describing it, which is not any judgment or opinion about you and your state. It's just, I'm just trying to wrap my head around.
Well, it's more like rather than going through the whole dialogue, it's kind of shortcutting. It feels like the process, not intentionally. It's just that, I feel an urge for some, say, addictive behavior.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to then say, okay, hey, addict, let's have a conversation between me and the addict. I can go without, it's not surpassing the addict. It's filling that exact same urge, that exact same perceived need, but with with like the act of feeling my feelings and being okay with my feelings and being in self energy and all right with all my parts, just that they're there, that's me. Can I read you something? I want to read you something.
Sure.
Okay. All right. It goes. Watch little kids, particularly when they're playing. They aren't self-conscious or insecure. They express themselves freely and exuberantly. They almost never freeze. The reason they don't is that they're filled with a higher force called the force of self-expression. It has a magical quality. It drives us to reveal ourselves in a truthful, genuine way without caring at all how other people react. As a consequence, when you're connected to this force, you speak with an unusual intensity and clarity. Everyone has experienced this force at some point in their adult lives, maybe in an excited discussion about something that's personally meaningful, maybe when you're comforting a friend in a crisis, even when you're making up a bedtime story for your kids. In each instance, 1,000 others, you've lost yourself in the experience and allowed the force of self-expression to speak through you. You've become a conduit for something wiser and more fluent than your normal self. There's relief and joy in this. The spoken word isn't the only way the force of self-expression emerges. There's a degree of self-expression in almost every human activity. One example is writing. A patient described it like this: when I finished writing my script, I had the feeling that I hadn't authored any of it. I'm just not that good. I felt like the whole thing had been dictated to me and I copied it down. The power even functions without words. When athletes say they're in the zone, they're really connected with the force of self-expression. Watch a great basketball player make an impossible move. He isn't thinking which lane is open or how tall is the defender. He's stopped thinking, stepped aside, and let this higher force take over. In fact, any human endeavor can provide a place for this force to express itself. When you're connected to the force of self-expression, a part of you speaks that's usually silent. You're speaking from your deepest inner self. This inner self has its own authority and is not dependent on the approval of others. Children naturally speak and act in harmony with this inner self. That's how they're able to express themselves with such abandon. But as we grow into adults, we turn away from this inner self. All our attention and activity becomes focused on the outside world. We start to look there for approval. By the time we're adolescents, we crave the acceptance of our peers as if it were the Holy Grail. That creates a new problem. We have to hide everything about ourselves that others might not like. Amazingly, the hiding place becomes our own inner self. We use it as a garbage bag, dumping everything that's unacceptable about ourselves into it. The inner self is still there, but now it's buried under our worst qualities. In the process, we've turned something that was beautiful, the inner self, into something we despise, the shadow. It may seem like the worst part of us, but really it's the doorway to the inner self. Only when that doorway is open can we truly express ourselves. That is, it's almost vague, but that's the closest that I've seen to what I have been feeling.
Mm-hmm. Feeling like
that like connecting to that energy and having that be as much of a part of me as my consciousness, accepting that all of those things that I've buried and all those ways I thought I would be abandoned and wasn't worthwhile, and all those ways in which I've protected myself from feeling those feelings, all of that is all very much a part of me. And that self energy, that feeling, is just as much a part of me. And if I put all of that together, then I'm okay. It's all of a sudden like all those ways in which I've exiled and buried and controlled and done all of those things. Mm-hmm. Each way I've done that, I have been looking for an outside force to fill that part of me, that ability that I already have. And when I'm in touch with that and I'm fully recognizing that, and a process is going on in which, say, an old pathway is being excited, and all of a sudden I'm feeling like, there's there's a potential for me to build resentment right here. And I hear maybe a similar saying go across, like, oh, that right there is resentment. That's the old pathway. And then just going straight to that self energy and like the humility of fully accepting all of those pieces of me, all those parts, all those actions, all the history, all that stuff, and just speaking from self.
Yeah. So you do that, and you connect with these parts that are, the resentment, etc. And then those parts are still saying that they don't want you to feel that feeling.
Nope. That's what I mean. It's like it like short circuits IFS, the self therapy version, self work of IFS, because once I got to that point where it was an actual felt sensation that it is all one, and all these parts are just, it is all one. They're not separate entities. And they're all working on the same thing, and they're all perceiving and adjusting and striving and panicking and all that stuff happening all at once. And the final step in all of it is to get in touch with the exile. And the exile is really just different versions of self energy. And as soon as I get into touch with that self energy, all of those protectors, all of those firefighters, everybody just, they melt away.
All right. Well, earlier you had said that they were all saying, don't feel that feeling.
Right. That's like the normal, that's what's happening. Like that would be during the process, right? Like, so I find myself in a day-to-day interaction and there's, and I'm having just like the normal, unconscious anxiety. It's just there underneath everything. And then maybe there's an event associated with that. Maybe there was a conversation associated with that. And I'm hearing different things pop up about that event or the conversation. And I'm realizing that, I'm not in self, and I'm feeling very tense. And I am like, I'm basically exiling the emotion that I have and trying to protect it through all these extra layers of defense mechanisms. And so I just kind of drop down past all those defense mechanisms and down right into my gut.
Yeah.
And there are a few tools that I have found that really help me connect with that rather than having all of these micromanaging conversations before I can get there.
Sure. Yeah. That makes sense to me. I think that, when we start IFS, we kind of have to start with what we have, and that's protectors yelling at each other and yelling at us. And then, the pathways get carved and the shortcuts are found to where I can go straight to the exile. And because I'm recognizing that there's this need, this longing, whatever experience the exile is having, and that is the shortcut by attending to that and noticing that helps the protectors relax the most.
All right. I'm going to elaborate a thing. The exile isn't there anymore. Rather than going to like that little kid in a sandbox or going to that teenager who's, I don't know, being rejected. I'm landing straight in that vibration, energy, feeling that is inside my gut. And, and the moment that I'm there, it can be like, oh man, it can be like how a tickle can feel like a burn, or a cold can feel like it's hot. or
Right.
it's that type of experience where it's just energy, and it literally could be anything. And so like it's the parts and the circumstances and these old pathways that are determining how that energy is perceived. And it could be anything. And the moment I get into contact with it, it feels like hope and joy and almost fearlessness and love and warmth.
Nice. Rather
than damage, and rather than anxiety. And it's like immediate compassion for the system and for all of those external circumstances that are activating this system. And so whatever I'm seeing in another person that I'm now receiving, and that in receiving it, I'm feeling all these, adverse reactions inside of me. And then all of a sudden, boom, it's like nothing but compassion for all of it.
Yeah. Do you see what you're describing as different from IFS?
I see it as everybody is current rather than finding, and they're not separate. So it's not, there's no longer like an individual that is the addict. There is no longer an individual that is the manager, this manager, that, the exile over here or over there. It's all, they're all just these defense mechanisms that are layered on top of the self energy. And the moment I get in touch with the self energy, they're all one. They're no longer there. And so I'm not like going to, to sit in the truck and drive down the highway with my hand on the knee of my younger self. I'm straight in the embodiment of my own self energy here within me, compassionate for all that was, is, and can come along. Man, it's hard to explain. It sounds like way too idealistic, but that's really the way that it's working.
It sounds like a shortcut to self energy.
Right. But then at the same time, now it's like the power is in my hands, and so now you've got all those parts that aren't necessarily parts anymore. They feel just like characteristics of me.
Yes. And what's the difference?
The parts are compartmentalized individuals. And now it feels like they're all just aspects of my development and my adaptation. And they're not individuals. They're just different ways in which my brain is working to fix, to not die, to whatever. Yeah. And it just doesn't feel like, oh, now I have to turn to this other thing, because the other thing it's right here. It's within me. It's all one. They're just different aspects. It helped so much. I wouldn't have been able to get to this place without doing it, right. Without separating them all out and figuring out how they're all interacting with each other and what I need to do to work through each of them to get to the bottom. I never would have been able to then all of a sudden fall through it all.
Right. Yeah.
But again, I said I had that realization, and it's been just as strong within me and just as real since I had it. So it's been months now, and yet I now find myself. Well, I guess I'll go. I found myself without my best tools. I went from having a very direct way of finding my patterns and had direct way to work on them and to fix my behaviors in real time and to feel better about what's going on and all that stuff through IFS. And then all of a sudden that kind of it all dissolved.
Yeah.
And now I had to deal with, okay, so now how am I just going to be okay with being in my energy? There's nothing for me to have conversations with and to work on. It's right here. Well, how am I going to do this? And I'm seeing things come up and I'm feeling ways and I'm deciding, it's like a, subconscious decision. How do I want to make myself feel better at this moment? And sometimes the shortcut or the IFS work or any of the work is like a do not enter sign. And rather than using the tool to its full extent and getting all the way to the other side and being fully in contact and fully integrated in self energy, it's a do not enter sign for that behavior, not the behavior of getting into contact with myself, but the negative behavior. And so like stops the system from moving forward in the negative behavior, thought process, whatever, but it doesn't fully address anymore what's going on in the internal landscape and getting into full contact with it.
Okay,
because it's like, oh, I know that like, I know the end result of that. I know that's not where to go. I know that I should be going over here. And then in that, all of a sudden the desire to do what I'm wanting to stop is gone. And do I really want to now put that effort into going all the way deep when there are the distractions of everyday life constantly?
Right. So you were saying the IFS is the do not enter sign?
Right. Like the IFS, it would be like, okay, I have my two options, and between me and going into the negative habitual behavior, there is a tool, and that tool would be, say, IFS. Mm-hmm. And I say, oh, right now I can use IFS and I can stop that behavior. And I know what the end result is of IFS. I don't have to do this behavior. So I don't do the behavior, but do I go all the way through IFS? No, because it's like a resistance. It's a do not enter sign for the behavior, but then I'm turning around and walking away from the behavior without being fully in contact with myself, without fully getting into. Yeah. Okay.
So my interpretation of that is that there's a part that is driving a certain behavior, let's say addiction, right? There's a part that's saying, I want to have the drink. There's the knowledge of IFS that says, when I simply by going to this place and recognizing this part, I can set the drink down and walk away. Problem solved. But there isn't the further conversation, if not engaging with that part to, I don't know, prevent it from happening again or to
I think that you're perfectly on track. It sounds like a part that we just found.
Yeah.
Yep. And so now that just has to become part of the system. I have to see and realize, the moment I'm having like a little bit of resistance to going down that path, there it is. That's my opportunity to go down that path. It's just more and more of like the effort that it takes to being real, to being really in self.
Yeah, and you had mentioned, that question of how much energy to put into this.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's the only place. It's the only place that energy is like, quintupled and sent back.
Yeah, where else can you put energy, right?
Exactly. And like that's the thing is like if I'm looking to pull something in to fill the hole, the hole becomes bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger. But if I turn around and I'm really embracing that hole and I'm looking at it, and slowly, but over the course of maybe 10 seconds, 15 seconds, it like literally transmutes into like this positive outgoing energy, like every time. And so why would I stop when I know that on the other side is like is pure goodness. It's the best version of myself that I could possibly be, and who I want to be, who I see myself as, and what I want to be with the world.
Yes. I have a couple other hypotheses that I wanted to throw out there.
I'm ready.
Since we're hypothesizing.
Mm-hmm.
One is that we could be talking about some perhaps caretaker part or something. There could be another kind of bypass. And I think you might have just recognized this when you said, well, this could be a part.
Yeah.
Which is if I can tap into something that suddenly puts a smile on my face and avoids, let's say, the addict or whatever other part, that could be we could consider that a part.
Well, here's
like,
take me out of this. Go ahead.
Take me out of this and make me feel better kind of part in another way. So that's just one thing that I was thinking.
Okay, so that urge, that's an easy one because it's so strong and so easily identifiable.
Mm-hmm.
Was at one point in IFS work isolated, and I had a very clear view, physically, emotionally, visually, of this addict. But now I don't really see the addict as much as a separate. It's like this shadow that I was just reading. It's this part, just like this, the collection of all these behaviors which are protecting me from feeling my feelings, right? This like, it's like all the parts became one part, I guess. That's how I see it now. And so then there's this avoidance, I guess we're going to call it, where I have the choice. Do I continue by my behavior or the pattern going down this hole? Or do I do the connection with self energy, and that immediately stops wanting to go down that dark hole or whatever? And now do I have to continue with the self energy thing? That's just another indicator. It's another one of the same things. Like when I hear myself saying something resentful about somebody or saying something negative about myself, and there's all these different things, all these different ways in which I'm doing this. Each one of them had been isolated into an individual character. Now that they're not there, and I don't want to say they're not there. They're collective. It's all, and it's hard to say it. It's all me. It's all.
Well, yeah. Another way is like it's an internal family. You might know them all so well that you don't see your family as different people. You're kind of experiencing like, I am the family. I am this family unit, and they're so close to you, kind of in a good way, that it feels like one.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. And I can say this is an avoider, and I can try to go in through IFS and pull out where the avoider came from and why they're there, and do all of that. But I think I've gotten to the point where that's not what's necessary.
Mm-hmm.
What's necessary is maintaining that connection with the self energy, and over time recognizing what those glitches are. And in talking with you today, I've recognized that one of those glitches is like this cure-all that doesn't allow me to do deeper work.
Right. It's taking you away from, it's part of what maybe had those tools dissolve, or, I mean, I know that you're seeing that as progress, but it's also, it can, if you've lost your desire to do parts work or whatever, and parts are still having issues, and now you're not able, not wanting to go there. It becomes
an issue because I still have to be diligent. It's cool. Yeah. I feel like, wow, I made a lot of progress, and I really understand, I'm really understanding my inner family and my inner network or my inner landscape. But certainly highs feel good, and then it's like, okay, so I have to have it all in perspective. The highs, they may feel good for a moment, but I also understand how good it feels to be in touch with my self energy. There's no better feeling.
Yeah. Maybe going back to the family analogy, it's kind of the difference of, we had a really great vacation. We did a lot of bonding. We're really tight this month. And there's still that, like, we can't really expect that to just stay that way 6 months later. Like, we'll need to have some maintenance in the relationships.
I like that. And where my mind is going with it is the maintenance is on what we had, rather than at the moment trying to continue communicating with each other. What we had when we collectively got together was like a clear path to self energy. And I don't, that path isn't obstructed anymore. I just get distracted in regular life, but I don't have to then go through all of those different parts to get to self energy. And so all I need to really do is maintain that open passage, rather than maintaining those tens of relationships.
Yeah. So what has been like the bigger glitches? What has been the bigger challenges?
I would have to say that everything is so much easier. Taking hits that I would normally perceive as like offensive or personal, and they can be anything. They can be, not feeling a eye contact that I was looking for, or anything that would normally activate, no longer is like anywhere near as powerful. And it's there. And then it's like immediately within, as the normal everydays go away within like 5-10 seconds, where they used to be lasting and building and compiling. There's a clean slate, like almost after every single incident. And then those that are really, really big incidents, they may take like a half an hour, not even sometimes. Like I had a really big incident last week. It was horrible. And I was out of that within 10 minutes. And that would have been something that wrecked me. And then everything else, all those minor day-to-day inconveniences or misconnections or whatever, would have been compiled with that. Right. And they're not. Right. They're like separate things, and they're not personal. And my connection with myself is like I feel that self. The hardest part are those no real indicator as to why you want to addictively fill some hole. The hole being there for no real reason. When there's a real reason, it's easy. It's so easy. You're like, oh, that person said that to me. Here's where I would go with it. There's where I am. Oh, that's no big deal. I feel great. I actually feel great. That doesn't have an effect on me anymore. That's awesome. And I love that person, and I hope the best. Like I really do. But there are the times where nothing is going wrong. And everything is going right. And I can even feel that elation and that be in contact with the self energy and be like just in a better place than I've ever been my whole life. And then all of a sudden, it's like that old behavior where if it's good, let's make it better, pops in. That's the hardest one for me.
Okay. Yeah, if it's good, let's make it better. Yeah. How can we amplify, increase?
Right. But now knowing that the only way to continually do this, to make it feel better, to make good better, to be in contact and all of that, is to stay in self-energy and continually make the choices that I think the ideal me would make. The person that I want to be, the person I see myself as, my ideal me. Would my ideal me do this? And if my ideal me would not do this, then I come out the other side of that exact moment feeling more in touch with myself, feeling like I have more trust. It's just like there are these deep feelings of trust and confidence and love. And anytime I do something that is out of alignment with what I believe my self-energy to be, that's immediate damage. And my gut takes that as a direct hit.
Mm-hmm. And then so let's say you avoid that addictive, whatever behavior. Does that part that wanted it backlash?
Not if I'm using my channel with self-energy to meet that need, that urge.
Yeah.
But if I don't, if I use it as the do not enter sign and I don't use the channel, then yep.
Right. If you just find another distraction or fight back with another part, then you can anticipate the backlash. But if you approach it from that self-energy,
then it's better on the other side.
Better,
it just continues to grow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nice, isn't it?
Yeah, it's awesome. It's just astonishing how deeply ingrained these neural pathways are. And no matter the realization, there's a rut, and I ride so close to that rut without realizing it. And then every once in a while, I fall into the rut, and I'm like, why would I fall into that rut? I've already done this. I already know this, and so that is it. Is the life's work is maintaining that direct channel to self-energy. And it's very difficult with all of those neural pathways already developed.
Sure. Yeah. I agree. That's life's work. Mm-hmm. Is there...
So I opened it up with how is that going for you? And yeah. And so now I can finally say, and how is that going for you? Like, what is that like for you?
Good. I have a lot of different language and perceptions compared to what you've described, but I get the feeling if we kept talking about it, and as we're talking about it, it's like we are talking about the same thing, and we're seeing the same solutions work, and the same shortcuts, and the same overall mission. Like we talked about where else to put the energy, and yeah, just the idea that the self energy works every time, that is the best solution to parts problems and external problems in our world. So how's it going for me? Same. And I also
smooth but bumpy.
Yeah, well, one thing that I really connected with is you were describing kind of the reaction times to when there are incidents, when there are, let's say, parts that are triggered, and it's the same for me. And I've witnessed it as I've started IFS, which is just there's a certain phone call I'm going to make, and it's going to be unpleasant, and it's just like, how unpleasant, how long is this going to bother me? How long am I going to ruminate on something? Or I have a tough decision to make, or I feel like something's not in alignment. And then, I'm having to address this issue. And how long will that rift, or how long will that ripple through the system as exiles that are sad?
How long will that cut me off from my own self energy?
Right.
Yeah.
And I've had the same kind of experience of like, I can get that down to like 10 seconds for most things,
and be fully clear on the other side. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I too, I mean, I'm assuming this is everyone. Like, we all have the quote addictive things, right? Like we all have the thing that we're not supposed to do that feels good to do, and then we wish we hadn't done it after we do it, and we've done too much of it sometimes, right? So it's the same. I have the same reaction of that coming up, and being able to be with it in a loving way that is what it really wants.
Do you have that same sense that once you are with it, that it becomes like you become compassionate for everything?
What do you mean by everything?
I mean all of the circumstances.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
And all of the other people and what everybody else is going through, and why Absolutely. Why they're acting the way they are. And
right. Yeah. So at first the voice that's saying, I'm just going to keep using alcohol. So at first the voice that's saying like, hey, drinking's cool. At first that's a very black and white thing. And it's like, shut up. I shouldn't do that. Right. And then as I quickly say, okay, wait, parts, self, and step in, then I see so much more of the landscape. And yes, I see the history of my life. And of this part, I see some of the harder times. I see the friends I've known that have died, or, how what my dad was like when he would drink or whatever. I just see all of this richness and depth. And that's so awesome, and it's all welcome. And it goes from being a quote problem behavior to just an incredible part of me that's just as valuable as any other part, and has just as much potential for good. Yeah.
It sounds like you're through all of that process, you still have a clear definition of an individual part.
I think so. I think that might be one of the places where I was kind of feeling like I'm on the other side of the fence from what you were describing, is that I do I do still see people inside of me. And I also recognize that, like, well, obviously there's some metaphor there, right? Like, obviously we don't have any, I'm not literally people that I can point to in there, but I often think of it like kind of like a dream. Like if you had a recurring dream, you know, we could talk about it as sensations, but it would probably be a lot easier to just talk about the actors in the dream. And so, for me, it's like that works fine. And it's what I do every day with people. And I'm very happy in this place. So I think I also understand what you're talking about, which is kind of shortcutting that and just let's just turn on maximum self energy and watch things get better. And we don't need to have the conversation, let's say, with the person that is the part, or even witness it in that way. So I get that, but
I've got a good metaphor for it. So you've probably seen images, like video images of the same silhouette, all the different colors of the spectrum, like in a line, and then they all move into the center and become one, and they have the full definition and all the different colors and all the different contrasts, and everything is one. Whereas when they were split out, each was just its own individual component.
Yes.
Does that make sense? Okay, so that just came to my mind as what it feels like when it's embodiment. And so rather than having to take a step over and talk to that particular shade of that particular color,
right,
it all comes together at once.
Right.
And then it like beams outward as like a loving, compassionate warmth. Like if all those colors come together and it's just like
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, obviously I'm in love with IFS, but
I am too. Nothing against it. I wouldn't be anywhere. I would still be where I was months and months ago.
Yeah. I would worry that, and I think I've seen this in myself, where it's like, well, I'm good now, so I don't have to do parts work. Basically,
that's the shortcut. That's the do not enter sign. Yep.
Yeah, I've felt that before.
Yep.
And yeah, I don't, just for me, like, I don't really trust that feeling much. Or, gosh, of all the things I've found, this is kind of the best. And so if this is all I can do is like do IFS, I think I'm okay with that. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, no, James, I think that there's maybe a misconception here, where you're perceiving that I'm not doing IFS.
Okay.
But the whole process is like one, we'll call it like a wormhole in space, you know, and like you get sucked into the wormhole. Maybe it's like a black hole or whatever. You get sucked into it, and then like in the movies, they always show like the images of all these past life experiences and maybe projections into the future, and then you arrive at whatever's on the other side of the wormhole. It's like the channel that is between my mental cognition and my self energy that's the wormhole, and I don't have to stop in the middle of the wormhole and decipher out individual memories and work on them individually. I could just right through it because it's integrated.
Yeah. So I think we are talking about the same thing. And
yes.
And I think what I was trying to say is I want to specialize. I want it to be my thing, that talking to parts. So I agree with you.
Wants to talk to parts.
I agree with you that place or that kind of destination of not necessarily needing to get into interview mode or get into dialogue with parts may or is kind of the next step. And I'm just saying my love of this work
Mhm.
keeps me focused on the conversational dialogue part.
Mhm.
So I'm just so steeped in that and love doing that yeah, I'm thrilled to just keep doing that.
Yeah, I don't find anything wrong with that at all. I'm not trying to downplay any of it.
Mhm.
It's all one. So I'm not like saying, oh, I'm going to bypass that. I'm just saying it all happens at once, where all those individuals, they all come right together in the middle, and there's the self energy, and it's beaming outward. It's just that I guess I could do the same thing if I wanted to, dedicate my time and energy to that as well. I could just say, all right, well, I really do enjoy that wormhole travel and finding those individuals and making the connection with them and nurturing them and helping other people find that same path. That there's nothing more noble. I don't think there's anything more noble. But I don't know if I've found what my purpose is other than embodying myself yet.
Yeah, that's awesome. That's great. Like keep
I'm
doing that
looking.
And you're looking and you're finding, right? So
Right.
you've found that, and that can only lead you in to better places and to things that truly work for you and all of your parts and dare I say all of the world.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. Great. Well, once again, we found no problems to solve, it sounds like. So.
Well, they're all there.
Yeah.
They're all right there. It's just becoming acquainted with the process and becoming fluent with it, and then finding the best way to channel my energy.
Nice. Cool. Well, let me know if I can help in any way and going forward or what comes to you.
I'm not writing, as much. There's like these are all free formed thoughts. And so this conversation with you, every time I have a conversation with you, it develops more clearly for me. So you are helping immensely in that way. You're doing the exact same thing. You're doing it on that next step in the path, I guess, with me. That's how that feels.
Yeah. Great. Cool. Well, I'm happy to keep doing that. So I'm having fun and I like having these conversations with you.
Yeah. Yeah. They're insanely productive.
Yeah.
All right, man. That works for me.
Okay. You know my number.
Yeah. Yeah. I'll book again. I love talking to you, man.
Great. Back at you.
Yeah.
Have a nice day.
All right. You too.
Do you want to help bring more self-energy to the world? If you'd like to participate in calls or help out with this project in any way, I'd love to hear your ideas. Join the Discord server or contact me at james@liveifs.com. A huge thanks to our audio engineer, Yvonne, for your care and diligence in editing the calls. To every caller for your courage in sharing some of your parts. And to anyone out there getting to know their internal system, keep going. Who knows, that might be the most selfless, helpful thing you can do for others, and you're the only one who can do it. If you'd like to see us reach the largest audience, we must please the almighty suggestion algorithms at iTunes and YouTube. And they don't care about the power of IFS. They're looking for likes and shares and comments, and the sooner the better. Follow the links in the show notes right here in your podcast player to make your wishes known. And now, a minute of meditation. Or if you prefer, pull over. You can do it in 60 seconds. Just click one of those links. They're right there, and give us a like or a 5-star rating. It would really help. If you think this project is helping people, you're helping people by sharing it. Thank you.